to my channel. So today I'm going to be reviewing the Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette. I was so excited to try out this palette because I'm obsessed with the Modern Renaissance palette. This palette is very different though to the Modern Renaissance palette because it's got more grungy colours. You can create like more out there looks with this though, like more, because the Modern Renaissance palette has more neutral kind of warm shades, where this has like pops of blue, purple, yellow, orange shades. It's a beautiful palette for more neutral shades as well because it's got the shades Roxy, New Wave, Mercury and Fudge, which are more neutral shades. So it's got 11 matte shades and 3 metallic shades. Now I'm just going to be giving you guys swatches of this palette. So I'm just going to be finger swatching the shade Roxy. So Roxy is a gorgeous kind of warm peachy tone. So now I'm just going to be swatching the shade Electric. So Electric is a golden shade with green reflex. It's a gorgeous shade. Next I'm swatching the shade Fudge. And Fudge is a gorgeous warm tone matte brown. So it's gorgeous to smoke out the crease. Next I'm going to be swatching the shade New Wave, which is a gorgeous warm kind of orange shade. Moving on to Untamed. So Untamed is like a forest green colour. I love this colour. I'm so excited to try to create new looks with this palette, especially the Untamed and Edge colours. So moving on to Edge. Edge is just like kind of like a yellow colour. So it's kind of like a deep kind of yellow. So it's not like a bright yellow. It's kind of a yellow with like an orange tone to it. Now Rowdy is Rowdy feels like really creamy. So Rowdy is like a dark purple shade, like a grungy purple shade. It's so gorgeous, this shade. Now moving on to the top row, I'm going to be starting off with Cube. So Cube isn't really too pigmented. Cube's like a kind of like a white kind of highlight shade, but it's not really pigmented. Like, this is my third swatch. If you can see guys, it's not really picking up that well. So now moving on to Dawn. Dawn's kind of like a gorgeous, it's a warm tone kind of transition shade. It kind of reminds me of like Creme Brulee from Makeup Geek. Now moving on to the shade Destiny. So it's kind of like an army green shade, Destiny. Now Adorn. Adorn is like a lovely metallic bronze shade. And it's so pigmented and creamy, this shade. Now moving on to All Star. All Star is kind of like a purpley maroon kind of shade. And it's so creamy again. Now moving on to Mercury. Mercury is like a gorgeous cool tone taupe shade. So with one finger swatch, these are just one swirl in the product and one finger swipe, and they are so pigmented as you can see. Now I'm just moving on to Axis. So Axis is kind of like it's like a deep teal green kind of shade. I love teal colours, but it's deeper than a teal though. So I'm just going to be swatching that one. Wow, that's so pigmented. So I feel like the shade Axis is more kind of chunky than the other shades, like it felt kind of chalky. So with the Subculture palette, I created the eye look that I'm wearing right now. So I used a lot of variety of colours just so I could show you guys how they blend out and go into my eyes. So I used metallic shades and also matte shades so you guys can see the result of the colours. So I started off firstly with priming my eyelids, and I'm just going to go in with the shade Edge on my Sigma tapered blending brush. So there is a little bit of fallout with this, but it's not a ridiculous amount. So this shade is really pigmented. Next, with the same blending brush, I'm just going to be taking the shade New Wave. So this shade is so pigmented and buttery. It's a really nice mustardy shade. So there's no fallout going on my face, which is good. There's just a lot of fallout when I do swirl my brush around in this product. Next, I'm going to be taking the shade Axis on my 231 Zoeva Luxe Petite Crease brush. So I'm just using this brush so I can focus it mainly on the outer edge of my eye. Next, I'm just going to be taking the Zoeva Luxe Soft Definer 227 brush, and I'm just going to be dipping in the shade All Star. This is a lovely, kind of like a maroon kind of burgundy shade. Now with the shade, I'm just going to be focusing it on the center of my eyelid and just blending it slowly into the Axis shade. So this shadow blended out fine. So next I'm just going to be grabbing the shade Adorn, which is a lovely bronzy shade, and I'm just going to be grabbing it on my Sigma Shader Inner Corner brush, E46. So I'm just going to be focusing this shade on the front of my eye. So I'm just going to be going in with some Fix Plus now just to intensify it even more. So with a wetter brush, it just becomes more metallic and more pigmented. It's not as pigmented when you don't have the wet brush. So I'm just going to be taking the shade All Star now and just blending in the Adorn shade so everything blends in seamlessly. So now I'm just going to be jumping into the shade Cube, and I'm just going to be firstly taking it with no Fix Plus just to see the intensity. So I'm just firstly going to be placing that on the inner corner of my eye. So this shade's actually not too pigmented at all. And I have been swirling my brush around in it for a bit. And now I'm just going to be applying it under my brow bone. So I'm definitely going to go in now with some Fix Plus to see if that helps. So it's definitely more metallic now I use my Fix Plus. And I'm just also going to be taking that under my brow bone. So I'm just going to be using the NYX Matte Liquid Liner just to sketch out my liner. For my bottom lash line, I'm just going to be taking Edge and New Wave, and I'm just grabbing that on my eye shading Sigma E55 brush. So I'm just going to be blending it inner corner to outer corner. Next up, I'm just going to be taking the shade Axis. So I'm just taking it on the Sigma Short Shader E20 brush, and I'm just focusing it on the outer half of my eye. Next, I'm going to be taking the shade All Star, and I'm just taking this on the inner part of my eye and blending it into the Axis shade. I'm kind of winging it towards my nose on the inner part of my eye. Now I'm moving on to the shade Adorn, and I'm just taking it on a little detailed brush. And I'm just taking it on the inner part of my eye and just blending it in with the purple shade. Thank you guys so much for watching my review on the new Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette. So if you enjoyed this video, then put a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So I'll see you guys soon.